Okay, so now we're going to apply those steps to a rational equation. So we have 1 minus 2 over x equals 15 over x squared. So look at the denominators. Now you might say, well, what about that 1 right at the beginning? You can think of it as 1 over 1 if you want to. And so we have a denominator of x, a denominator of x squared. And so we can say that the extraneous solutions, x cannot be 0. And that's the only one that would make the denominators 0. So think about, when x equaling 0, okay, we can't have that. And then when would x squared equal 0? Well, if x were 0, so that's the one we can't have. We can't have x being 0, okay? So this is the extraneous solution. Just keep it as a note to yourself. At the end, we're going to have to check and make sure we didn't get 0, okay? I'm going to erase. Stuff's in my way. All right. Now we're going to find the LCD. So think about 1x and x squared. The LCD is x squared. All of them can divide into x squared. So now we multiply everything by the LCD. So what I like to do is kind of recopy the equation with a little bit of space, and then I'll just multiply that in here. So maybe you've learned when you were solving linear equations in the past to clear the fractions. This is the same thing, okay? So we're trying to get rid of those denominators, all right? Now, this 1 down here really didn't have to be there. It's gone. So now I have x squared times 1, which is just x squared, okay? Minus, it's going to be a minus, that comes from there. This x cancels into x squared with an x left over. So minus 2x equals, and then on the other side, I have x squared and x squared canceling, so I get 15. Okay? Now, we know how to solve two types of equations. We know how to solve linear equations, and we know how to solve quadratic equations. And so I guess we're working on solving rational equations, but kind of forget about that, because what we did is multiplied by the LCD, so now it's either going to be a linear equation or a quadratic. This is a quadratic equation. And how do we know it's quadratic? Because it has x squared in it, okay? So that means we need to factor it. All right, well, before we factor it, we better set to 0. So x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. So think back in chapter 6 when we did quadratic equations and how we solved them. We have to have it set to 0. Then we're going to factor it. Keep working on your factoring skills. And then we can say, well, either x minus 5 equals 0 or x plus 3 equals 0. That's the zero product property, the old ZPP, okay? And so when we have it set to 0 and it's quadratic and we factor it, one of our factors has to be 0. Okay, now we solve those linear equations. In this case, we get x equals 5. And in this case, we get x equals negative 3. Now you got to go way back to the beginning. What were the extraneous solutions? Okay, x just couldn't be 0. So 5 and negative 3, they're okay. If you're writing a set notation, you would say the solution set is negative 3 and 5. And those two values will work. You could plug them in, and they would make the equation true. Okay? I'm not going to do that on this problem, but maybe another problem I'll do that.